So I just got to try out something pretty interesting, a smart bike with a holographic display that can project a 3D image without the need for 3D glasses, VR goggles, or anything like that. And it was kind of a trip. So the Saga HoloBike is the brainchild of an ex-Google engineer who worked in their AR and VR departments, and he wanted to combine the immersion and 3D aspects of AR goggles like, let's say, the Apple Vision Pro with the smart bike without having to deal with the challenges of wearing goggles when you're working out. They can be heavy, you can get motion sickness after a while, and they're just not ideal when it comes to sweat. So to do this, he needed to come up with a special kind of display technology to do the same thing that VR goggles do, which is to have a stereoscopic display, which means having a separate image for each eye that differs just slightly, which then your mind merges together into a 3D image. And that kind of brings up a good point before we get into the rest of the video, is that it's kind of impossible to properly illustrate this on a 2D video like you're watching right now. What you see right now are both the images, but what you see in real life are those two images merged together. So what you're going to see in this video is kind of like what you'd see in a 3D movie theater without 3D glasses on. So it is something that you have to be in person to fully experience, and that's what I had to do. Now, the HoloBike is currently a Kickstarter project where they have a prototype built, which is what I rode, and they hope to deliver the final product around winter of 2024. At least that's what their Kickstarter page says right now. In this video, I just wanted to share my thoughts on the experience, the current state of the project, where they want to be when they deliver, as well as my overall thoughts on the concept and who exactly this bike is for. So there's tons of options right now when it comes to indoor cycling apps, with everything from the gamification and social aspects of something like Zwift, to the dedicated training aspects of something like Trainer Road, to the live instructor-led classes with something like Peloton, and of course plenty of others with everything that looks like an arcade game, all the way to videos of real-life routes in the real world. All those platforms have something going for them to keep us engaged, and the creator of the HoloBike thinks that the immersion and the feeling of moving through space can help us significantly forget that we're riding indoors, kind of like, where did the time go? So how this all works is that first, there's a stereoscopic camera. So basically 2 cameras that are above the monitor, tracking the movement and position of each eye in real time. And based on information, it's projecting an individual image for each eye from the monitor. And the reason it needs this information for each eye is that the image needs to adjust based on your body position to create the most realistic experience. And they say that they're taking these measurements in like the micromillimeters and then simultaneously delivering 2 4K images at 60 frames per second. And to make this all work, they couldn't just use an off-the-shelf monitor, so this is a special 27-inch display panel that they had to develop that you can think of as basically 2 4K monitors stacked on top of each other, which each displaying a slightly different image, and then your eyes merge those 2 images together. Now, for the experience, I think it's probably just good to show my actual first reaction when I first saw it. This is nothing like I've experienced before. So as you can tell, it really did take me by surprise, and you'll see that I'm kind of moving my head just a bit, trying to get a grasp on what they've been able to do, because my brain wasn't really able to process seeing something like that without the need for glasses or goggles. So a tree was just kind of came onto the trail right there, and I almost had to duck for a second there. So what I'm talking about there is that in addition to the road surfaces, as well as the little posts, signs, and rocks on the side of the road, there's also a lot of trees and shrubs, and they purposely put some tree branches that kind of hang over the road where it feels that you kind of have to like duck under them when you're riding. And then another thing that they've added to the visuals are these light streaks that kind of adds that feeling of moving through space. So, I mean, overall, they have done a good job here when it comes to being immersive and feeling like you're actually moving. Now, in terms of the environment and routes, so these aren't videos. They generate these images using real-world LiDAR scans of an environment, and then they render all the graphics in real time using high-powered NVIDIA GPUs. They say something like the power of like 2 Xboxes together or something like that. And then they combine that with map data of real-world roads and trails to create these final environments that you ride through. Oh, and then one more thing that you may have noticed are these sounds, which they have specifically designed to help with the immersion, which helps you feel like you're outside. So it is pretty cool what they've created here, but there were some things that I noticed that can be a bit odd, and it mainly has to do with body position. So if you stay more still and don't make any big sudden movements, it's good. And you can even move your head from side to side a bit like I was doing, and it's perfectly fine. But if you make any sudden movements, the refresh rate doesn't really keep up, and there's enough of a delay with the images where it feels unnatural. And then if you shift from side to side a bit more, the viewing angle isn't all that ideal, and then it gets a little bit weird. And then related to that, sitting up and taking your hands off the handlebars, that will also affect the image. But where you really lose the immersion though is when you stand up and get out of the saddle, where the image starts to jump around a lot since you're making quick and drastic changes. So it really is about being in that seated riding position where you actually get that immersion factor.
So that's where it gets a little strange, right? Just because I'm obviously like in a completely different position.
Yeah.
And the image is jumping around right there. So is there, what considerations are there for like the stand-in sprint type scenario?
And they are aware of some of these concerns. So the prototype that I was riding is sampling at 90 hertz from the cameras, and they hope to increase that to 120 hertz with the final product. And they are also looking into adding an accelerometer, which may improve the experience with quick movements. But at the moment, the 90 hertz refresh rate isn't really fast enough to account for those quick changes in body position, which just happens with real riding. And the images are a bit slow to react.
So what we're going to ship that this display doesn't have is we're going to ship an accelerometer in the display module. The accelerometer lets us, or inertial measurement unit actually is more technically what it is. So the inertial measurement unit is going to let us correct the image in real time to accommodate those micro movements.
Okay.
So they have created something very cool and unique here, and it could be the answer for someone who wants the immersive experience of VR goggles without having to deal with the weight or the sweat. But there is some refinement that has to happen here before I think someone could do a real workout for an extended amount of time. And another thing that comes to mind is that with VR goggles, they're incredible for a while, but after like an hour or so, you kind of want to take them off. And this can be for multiple reasons, whether that's just wearing goggles, the motion sickness that can happen, or you just want to see the real world. So I'll be curious with extended sessions with this thing to see if the novelty is still there after like, let's say 60 to 90 minutes. But the other part of the HoloBike is the bike itself, where they plan to deliver an all-in-one solution with both the display as well as the smart bike, where it'll be totally interactive, just like you'd have on a smart bike or a smart bike trainer, where there'll be automatic changes in resistance based on hills and gradients. Now, the prototype that I was riding had a static resistance system and not the automatic resistance system that they say that'll be shipping with the final product. And for the final resistance system, they say that they're going to be using some off-the-shelf components and then kind of putting those together for the final product, but they're not necessarily going to be taking like a kicker bike trainer and just bolting it on there either. But this is the part that kind of took me by surprise. So when I tried it in May of 2024, they didn't have a prototype of the automatic resistance system ready. And being that winter of 2024 is like 7 to 8 months away, depending on which month that you want to choose, it seems like kind of a short timeline to develop something like that, even with off-the-shelf components. And related to that, I also asked them why they chose to go with the entire smart bike versus a standalone display. And they said that they needed to design the ergonomics of the bike to match the display in regards to the body position and the viewing angle. And based on what I experienced, I can definitely see that, since any drastic change in body position other than the ideal riding position wasn't all that great. Now, when it comes to content in regards to the roads and trails, so at the time that I rode it, they had one world with one route to ride, and they plan on having 5 to 6 environments when they launch. But since I first wrote it though, they've come up with a new way to create routes based off of drone footage at multiple angles at different altitudes. And I guess this is called radiance field scanning. And then that information gets fed into some AI tech called Gaussian splitting with a whole bunch of like high powered GPUs. And they're able to kind of like spit out these worlds quickly. Anyhow, apparently it's the first consumer application of this kind of technology, which not only makes it more efficient to create these environments, but also is supposed to be a lot more realistic. I'd say that the images that I saw with the original technology are like an extremely good video game, where it's easily the best graphics I've ever seen in a cycling platform.
The actual graphics, by the way, everyone, they're super top notch in here. They're a far cry from something like Zwift, which is, definitely a, more video gamey type experience. But this is, absolutely what you would expect in very high-end video games.
And again, I haven't gotten to experience that new technology in real life, but this is at least some 2D video of that technology, which does look even more realistic than what I saw for sure. And then they also have some other features that they have planned for the future, such as some multiplayer interaction, as well as some audio beamforming technology that's supposed to create an even more immersive audio experience. But ultimately, they just want to get it into customers' hands and then get feedback on what features customers want to see and then build those out as desired. But I think content is going to be a big key to making this product work with a big content library, so there's always something new and engaging, just like a video game where you want to go out and explore. And I guess this gets us to who this product is for. So I don't think it's for the Zwift Zwift rider. It's definitely not for the trainer road type rider, and I don't think it's for the Peloton rider either, but it is very entertaining and engaging, and I think it could be the answer for someone who wants that immersive VR experience of goggles without the hassle, and it's definitely the most immersive experience that I've ever tried on a bike. But for me, as a pretty dedicated cyclist, I would love to have this as an option, but I don't think I would use this every day either. But I'd love to have it in the mix along with other platforms like Zwift and Trainer Road. Now, although dedicated all-in-one smart bikes isn't necessarily the way the industry is trending right now, where people want more versatility and variety, one good thing to know is that at the heart of the HoloBike is just a really powerful gaming PC, so you could very well just go ahead and install Windows on here and run other cycling apps. And one thing that can help HoloBike is if they have some in-person public demos, because you really do have to be in person to experience this technology, and they don't have any plan for the moment, but they hope that with some of the Kickstarter funds they'll be able to build some more bikes and have some of these demos where you can experience it. Anyhow, great idea and a cool experience, but there is a ways to go, so I hope to hop on it in like 6 months or so to see how far they've come. Anyhow, what are your thoughts on this idea? Do you think it's going to be a good alternative to something like Zwift or Peloton? Definitely let us all know down in the comments section down below, and if you found the information in this video useful or entertaining or something like that, feel free to hit that like button and also subscribe to the channel for plenty more sports tech videos that are coming soon. Happy riding, and we will see you in the next video.